History is a lie agreed upon. But money? Money is the truth. Close your eyes. Imagine a world where presidents are employees, where wars are line items on a balance sheet, where the borders of nations are merely ink on a map. Ink that can be erased by a single stroke of a pen in a private room in London. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a record of facts, a ledger. For 2 centuries, one name has sat at the center of the web, a name whispered in the marble corridors of power, a name that funded the defeat of Napoleon, the rise of the industrial age, and the birth of the State of Israel. They're the creditors of kings, the ghosts in the machine of global finance. But how did a family confined to a single, narrow street in a German ghetto rise to own the very concept of the modern world? What did they discover about the nature of power that the rest of us are still too blind to see? The answer is hidden in plain sight. But to find it, you have to follow the gold. And the gold leads to a door that hasn't been opened in 200 years. Until now, the forge of the ghetto. Frankfurt, 1744. The Judengasse, the Jews' Lane. A dark, damp alleyway, 12 feet wide, walled in, locked at night. This was a prison in all but name. This is where Mayor Amschel Rothschild was born into the dirt. He had no rights, no citizenship, no future, or so the world thought. Mayor didn't look at the walls. He looked at the coins. Ancient, rare, discarded coins. He became a merchant of history. He learned a secret. The aristocracy is obsessed with prestige, but they're often short on cash. He began to trade with Prince William of Hesse. He didn't just sell him coins. He sold him loyalty. He became the prince's court Jew. A dangerous title, a golden cage. But Mayer was playing a longer game. He watched how the prince rented out his soldiers like cattle. He saw that power isn't about owning land. It's about owning the debt of those who rule it. He had 5 sons, 5 boys raised in the shadows of that narrow street. He taught them one rule: Concordia, Integritas, Industria. Unity, integrity, industry. But there was a 4th rule, the unspoken one. Never let the world see your hand. He sent them out. 5 arrows shot into the heart of Europe. London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, Frankfurt. The trap was set, but the world was about to explode. The Waterloo Heist, 1815. The fate of Western civilization hangs on a single ridge in Belgium. Waterloo, Napoleon versus Wellington. 2 titans, 1 winner. If Napoleon wins, England falls. The stock market would collapse. If Wellington wins, the British Empire becomes the master of the seas. In London, Nathan Rothschild waited. He didn't wait for the official couriers. He had his own, faster boats, secret riders, a private intelligence network that moved like lightning across a continent in chaos. A messenger arrived at the docks. He carried a coded scrap of paper. Nathan walked onto the floor of the stock exchange. He stood by his usual pillar. He didn't say a word. He began to sell. The room panicked. Rothschild knows, they screamed. Wellington is defeated. The market crashed. Panic selling turned into a bloodbath. Consols, the British government bonds, hit rock bottom. They were worthless. Then, in the final hour, Nathan gave a silent signal to his agents. They bought everything, every scrap of paper, every debt, every piece of England's future. Hours later, the official news arrived. Napoleon was finished. The market skyrocketed. In a single afternoon, Nathan Rothschild didn't just make a fortune. He bought the British government. He became the lender of last resort to the greatest empire on earth. But that was only the beginning. What happened next changed the DNA of human society forever. The invisible crown. By the mid-1800s, the Rothschilds were no longer people. They were system. They financed the Suez Canal in a matter of hours. They funded the railroads that conquered the Americas. They owned the mines, the ships, and the banks. But power attracts eyes, and eyes bring heat. The world began to notice a pattern. The Rothschilds funded both sides of almost every conflict. They funded the North and the South. They funded empires and the rebels who fought them. Why? Because debt doesn't care who wins. Interest flows in the blood of the fallen. Controversy flared. Riots. Pamphlets. The family was accused of being a shadow government, a hydra with heads in every capital. The emotional tension was suffocating. They were the most hated and most envied men on the planet. So, they did the only thing a true predator does when the lights turn on. They vanished. They retreated behind the high walls of their estates. They moved their wealth into private trusts. They stopped publishing their balance sheets. They realized that true power is most effective when it is believed to be a myth. Few people know this part of the story. They didn't lose their influence. They just made it invisible. They traded the crown for the shadow. And the shadow is much harder to strike. The palaces of silence. Look at the world today. You see the tech giants. You see the flashy billionaires on social media. But look closer. Look at the places where the real decisions are made. The private chateaus in France. The hunt clubs in England. The closed-door meetings in Switzerland. The Rothschild lifestyle isn't about luxury. It's about exclusion. They own vineyards where a single bottle costs more than a family car. They live in manors like Waterloo, temples of art and gold that make Versailles look like a guest house. But the real luxury is the silence. While you are tracked, logged, and data mined, they remain off the grid. They operate through a web of advisory firms. They are the consultants to the world's biggest mergers. They are the whispers in the ears of prime ministers. They don't need to own the company. They just need to own the man who runs it. It is an elite, untouchable existence. A world where the laws of physics and economics don't seem to apply. They have navigated the fall of monarchies, the rise of communism, and the digital revolution without losing a single step. How? By remaining the architects of the very air we breathe. They are the ultimate insiders. And you? You are the data. The architects versus the inhabitants. Ask yourself a question. Why does the world feel like it's on a loop? Why do the names of the leaders change, but the policies stay the same? Why is the global debt an all-time high? And to whom exactly is that debt owed? We live in their world. We use their financial systems. We participate in the economies they structured over 2 centuries of trial and error. The gap between the street and the chateau has never been wider. To a normal person, money is something you work for. To them, money is something you create. We are the inhabitants of a grand design. They're the architects. But every building has a flaw. Every system has a breaking point, even one that has lasted 200 years. The unresolved ledger. The name Rothschild is rarely in the headlines today. Some say their power has faded, that they're just old money in a new tech world. But history tells a different story.